NATO is keeping an eye on the developments along the Ukraine-Russia border. The military alliance announced on Tuesday it will triple its usual number of air patrols over the Baltics next month, from 4 to 12 fighter jets. This underscores the tensions in Eastern Europe. For some perspective, former ambassador to Georgia and Kazakhstan, William Courtney, joins us now. And Sergei Lavrov is saying that this could turn into a civil war. What's your take? What do you think?
Well, this is mostly contrived, as Secretary of State John Kerry has said. These are provocateurs, security forces, thugs from Russia who've come over to do this. The big difference between Crimea and eastern Ukraine is ethnic Russians were 3/5 of the population in Crimea. They're not a majority in any one of the eastern oblasts or regions of Ukraine.
What about these talks next week? Foreign ministers, Russia, U.S., Ukraine, the EU all getting together. Do you see much headway coming out of that?
Well, it's not even clear that the talks are going to be in time, because Russia is gearing up for what looks like a potential invasion. Now, they may not invade, but they're certainly heightening the tension so as really to scare the government in Kiev and perhaps actually seize eastern Ukraine.
You know, it's interesting you say that. I lifted two headlines before I came out here. One was Russia claims American mercenaries are in eastern Ukraine. The other is U.S. sees Russian agents behind eastern Ukraine unrest. I want you to put on your diplomat's hat for me, because you've been in the diplomatic ranks. That kind of dialogue coming from both sides really kind of gets in the way of any kind of negotiations, doesn't it?
Well, going back to Stalin, the favorite Soviet tactic, propaganda tactic, was to accuse your adversaries of doing what you in fact are doing. But what is taking place here is a Russian provocation, potential Russian invasion, as already happened in Crimea. But the big difference is this time the Ukrainians will have warning. They will shoot. In Crimea, the Ukrainians were surprised, no shots were fired. So this is much riskier for Moscow.
But some would say in Crimea, the people of Crimea, there was a referendum. They decided they wanted to go with Russia. It was once part of Russia. You know, this is the dialogue that we don't hear a lot here in the West.
Well, this is a referendum, really, that took place only after Russian military had occupied Crimea, and then there have been lots of reports about ballots being pre-marked and other things. It was a thoroughly rigged election, and then Leonid Brezhnev or Nikita Khrushchev would have been proud of the 97% vote total.
I saw a former U.S. official today say that Putin has a strong hand in this poker match the West does not. Would you agree with that?
Well, Putin is clearly pushing the effort. I think the West has been still a little shell-shocked that the Russians have been so aggressive on this. But Russia may be a little the West may be slow to arouse itself, but the West is very strong and Russia is vulnerable, particularly economically.
How so? How so? I mean, because there seem to be deep divisions. The U.S. kind of comes at it one way, Europe entirely different.
No, Europe and the U.S. are pretty closely aligned on this. In fact, more than most people thought. Because the Europeans have more economic ties with Russia, particularly dependence on gas, but also export from Germany of machines and things like that to Russia. They're a little more wary, but the extent of Russian aggression has been so great that the Europeans are shocked. If Russia goes in militarily in eastern Ukraine, U.S. and Europe are going to both go for very strong sanctions.
What about what we saw in the parliament today? What does that indicate to you?
Nothing much, really. Fistfights are fairly common in the Ukrainian parliament. There are some tensions, of course, about how to deal with this. But the big thing for Ukraine is presidential election on May 25th, which will be an opportunity to broaden consensus in the country. And the Russians are scared, Putin is scared, that in eastern Ukraine, if that election takes place, most of the people are going to vote for the Ukrainian government.
Ambassador Courtney, thank you for your time. Certainly appreciate it.